gosh, so many entrepreneurship ventures, boss. I mean, we definitely need to have a coffee together one day.
Sure, sure. I'd love to catch up. So, Abranila,
Yeah.
I think we have about 25 people now. So, should we wait to reach at least about 35 before getting started, right? Maybe 5
I
minutes?
think we'll wait for 5 minutes and then we'll start.
Great.
Absolutely perfect. And you based in Calcutta, Shrish?
Yes, in Calcutta.
Oh, lovely. Where in Calcutta?
Not part of Calcutta. Do you know Lake Town?
Yes, of course I do.
Yes, we are in Paikpada, very close to Lake Town.
Oh,
So
lovely.
this old Calcutta kind of sort.
Yes. I have some relatives who live on the Park Street, and I have some relatives who live in Shakespeare, Sarani.
Okay, okay.
So, yeah.
And where are you based out of presently?
Delhi.
Delhi. Okay.
Delhi.
How's the condition in Delhi now?
Oh, terrible.
I mean, it's always in news these days.
For all the wrong reasons.
Yes, unfortunately. So other
The farmer agitation and, but I'm one of those mavericks, I can tell you, Srish, I've been going to the office for the last 26, 27 weeks. And also the fact that, even today, I crossed the border many times. So I work in Noida, but I'm now in Gurgaon, which is like crossing 2 states. But it's okay. I mean, it's a lot of checking because of the farmer agitation, but otherwise it's fine.
Okay. So all this news that we keep on hearing regarding Corona and all that stuff, is it true?
No, it's true. It's true.
True.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's because, Delhiites never listen to anybody. That's the problem.
So
they all think they are, so a lot of people don't wear masks, don't do, like I came in, I first sanitized somebody's office, I'm having my mask, I have my sanitizer. So, I mean, but a lot of people who are not taking these precautions, it's a problem. And I can tell you there are many who don't even, you sometimes feel that there is no corona or what. Nobody's wearing a mask.
And at times, most of us have a sense कि यार मेरे को नहीं होगा, बाकी सबको हो सकता है.
Correct. And इसमें तो वो कहते हैं कि, सबको ही होगा. It's only a matter of time. And, like, because I'm from Fortis, I have lots of friends. All the doctors are my friends, and I hired most of them. And they tell me that it's a terrible situation in the hospitals.
And are we really expecting another lockdown in Delhi, or is it?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there'll be any lockdown. Because even if you look at the other countries, so UK has a lockdown, but schools are open. Right. Germany has a lockdown, but everything is open. Similarly for Toronto, my daughter is in Toronto. She works for KPMG, and they have a lockdown, but life is normal except you can't do gatherings. That's the only restriction.
Okay.
So it's our lockdown is very different. Our lockdown में तो मतलब बंद कर देते हैं घर के अंदर. But maybe that's needed, looking at how indisciplined we are. Because even the numbers are going up actually in Hyderabad, in Mumbai, in Pune. Calcutta seems to be okay for us, but you never know.
No, Calcutta seems to be okay because these days we love to really cover the news. Actual numbers, to be very frank, is not coming out.
Same in Delhi.
Same in Delhi. Reasons.
You're absolutely right. And Delhi's who कहते हैं third wave आ गया, second wave आ गया, but actually initially we never reported, so there is no wave. The same damn wave is carrying on, except that we started reporting now. That's correct.
So I see quite a few people have already joined.
And we can start whenever you're ready.
Yes. Avanila?
Yeah.
Should we get going? Because Harsh really wants to put a hard stop around 6 years since he has a meeting.
Yeah, that's right. So, welcome everyone to another session of the TiE Kolkata Bootcamp. Today we have Mr. Srish Agrawal, CEO and founder of A1 Future Technologies, with us as the host. And he's also our charter member. And I'm Abranila, manager TiE Kolkata. So, Mr. Agarwal, over to you.
Thank you so much, Abranila. Thank you, friends, for joining this session, or should I say, much awaited session. Requirement of times that during this work from scenario and during this COVID, how do we really get the work done by the people who are working from home? How do we really set their KPIs? How do we really set their goals and ensure that our targets are duly met? Definitely, it's challenging. When I talk to people, I understand everybody is trying to do something new in this new normal. So who better than Harsh to really talk on this subject today? So let me give you a brief profile of Harsh. And today I will take the liberty of actually reading out his profile, because his experience of more than 26 years in the industry is something really worth, which is inspiring each one of us. So Harshvendra Soin, Global Chief People Officer and Marketing Head, Tech Mahindra Limited. Harsh is a gold medalist in personal management and industrial relations from University Business School, Chandigarh. He's also completed his Bachelor of Law from Punjab University and has 26 plus years of experience in Indian and multinational companies. Harsh currently heads the human resource and marketing functions as Global Chief People Officer and Head Marketing at Tech Mahindra Limited. Well, to add to it, Harsh played an instrumental role in expanding the operations of Tech Mahindra in Canada. Before his current role, he was in a business role of CEO and country head at Tech Mahindra, Canada, prior to which he led global leadership acquisition and development and was also the head business HR for Tech Mahindra. Prior to Tech Mahindra, Harsh was the Chief People Officer at Fortis Healthcare Limited, based out of Gurgaon. He was working with Aditya Birla Retail Limited as Chief People Officer before Fortis and was responsible for the rapid scale-up of the organization. Prior to Aditya Birla Retail Limited, Harsh was worked with Bharti Enterprises, where he held many senior positions at the corporate office, where he was designated as Senior Vice President, People Excellence, before moving as the head HR for Bharti Retail Limited. So in frank, retail, telecom, healthcare, IT, he has been playing instrumental role everywhere, irrespective of the industry. He has also worked with Oberoi Group and Panware Limited. He is holding responsible positions in multiple organizations, which includes, he's a member of the HR community at FICCI. He's also an executive committee on the executive committee of the Global Forum on Migration and Development, an initiative of the International Organization of Employees Geneva. He's also an honorable member of Chandigarh University Corporate Advisory Board. And apart from these positions, he has had multiple awards that he has received, some of them being Talent Magnet Award for the Conscious Business Leader Award 2016 by LinkedIn, Pride of HR Profession Award by India Human Capital Summit 2011, HR Leadership Award, Asia Pacific HRM Congress and Ascent, Most Powerful HR Professionals of India Award by World HRD Congress, and he is the past president of NHRD, Hyderabad chapter. And to add to all these things, he's extremely passionate about sports, loves to travel, and he's an extremely creative and high energy person. So this is in short, should I say. And now I'd like to hand over the baton to Harsh to take things forward so that we all can learn from him and implement in our respective companies. Harsh, on to you.
Thank you, Shirish. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be here. And thank you, members, for allowing me this opportunity. All I can say is I'm going to give you a perspective which is more from the business side and an HR side, both. And my perspective is also from relatively a large company. We have 125,000 people across 95 countries. But what I've tried to do is, in a short presentation, try to give you a perspective of what's new. While KPI setting is not really the most exciting topic for all of us, but I've tried to say that it's relevant because things are changing. And because things are changing, our performance management systems and KPIs also have to change. Otherwise, we will not be able to keep pace with what we want to do. And as entrepreneurs, all of you are so well qualified to actually, on this topic, because you've done it all. But my endeavor is really to give you a few perspectives which may be different from what you would hear on an everyday basis. So I have a short presentation, and I will share my screen now. I don't know if is it visible, Shrish?
Yes, it's visible.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, so let me start by saying that I love this quote from Einstein. What he said is, we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we use to create them. And, when I speak to people in my organization, they seem to think performance management will solve all their issues and, will suddenly make average performers into great performers overnight. Unfortunately, that's not true. But what it can do, if used properly, is to A, segregate, and two, really try and increase productivity. And when you try and increase productivity of your organizations, very interestingly, what happens is that the performance level of the entire organization goes up. And I'm going to use the next few slides to talk about it. The whole endeavor of all of you as entrepreneurs is, how do we create these supremely productive employees? And it's a jargon, but really supremely productive employees are nothing but employees who are highly networked, very much like yourselves, take huge interest in problem solving, take ownership and pride, and are entrepreneurial, like all of you. And we've seen clearly, if there's a highly or a supremely productive employee, he or she can give you 4 times the productivity and impact of an average employee. So obviously it's important for all of us who run businesses. Clearly, we've also seen that high performing employees are worth their weight in gold. And I cannot over exaggerate this point, because we don't really seem to think and we make the mistakes of pleasing everybody rather than segregating top talent from average talent. And this is why KPIs are important. And this is why TiE has this session today, because while we know who are high potential and high performers, very much like a curated dish, they also need seasoning. And that seasoning comes from giving them a clear direction through the KPIs that we will be setting for them. Well, this is an important slide. We've talked about the new normal. COVID has changed many things for us, like it has changed for all of you. And performance management and employee behavior is not what it used to be. Ladies and gentlemen, today, performance management is now driven by technology. It is more assisted by technology because of the virtual work environment. And really, it is very different. It is much more data-based and not emotion-based or perception-based. Again, I don't know about you, but for us, we are challenged because we now have a lot of gig workers. Almost 7,500 to 8,000 gig workers work for us. And it is important to align them to the objectives of the organization, which means a person who's coming only for a few hours in a month, how do you make sure that his or her KPI is also connected? And what happens is, today, outcomes are more important than just behaviors or inputs. So obviously, especially for gig workers and for others, we have to make them outcome based. And one of the unintended beneficiaries of COVID has been diversity. And today, how do we do KPIs for people who are working part-time, people and diversity and inclusivity, basically part-time housewives who work with us only for a few hours, people who've taken a break, or ladies who've taken a break for maybe their kid was being small, working for 2 hours a day. How do we set their KPIs? And how do we measure only outcome? Again, I will repeat this point. As entrepreneurs, what you should be interested in is outcome, not number of hours and really the whole rigmarole of what you put in as inputs. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about the now normal. And I've spoken about this in various forums, and I've said the new normal is the now normal. And the difference is that whatever we thought will come in 20 years or 10 years is actually here now. Everything has been expedited. We have suddenly faced challenges that we never knew we would face. While we had BCPs in place, but imagine our BCPs spread across another city or another part of the same city or another country, but in a pandemic-like situation where every city of the world is affected, how do we manage to keep our employees highly productive? In an environment where our costs are under pressure, in an environment where our profits are under pressure, how do we manage and set KPIs so that generally the productivity of employees is enhanced? And that's, I think, the new normal that we're going to talk about. So the first change, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, from the past to the future is that the new KPI system or the PMS system eliminates, and I mean eliminates, cascading goals. Like traditionally we said we will set the CEO's goals and cascade them down. No longer that's valid. Annual reviews are outdated. 360-degree feedbacks are gone. And we always believed in the past that the ownership of the PMS is the appraiser, that you have to call your employee and say, please do an appraisal, but that's also gone. What the new system or the new normal or the now normal is promoting is speed, technology-driven appraisal systems with agility. And I'll give you an example. Because of AI that we use for our appraisal system, we are actually experimenting with a new appraisal system where you can actually do these conversations in less than 20 minutes, but you actually are assisted by technology and AI to fill those large forms. You don't have to really write everything down and waste hours and hours. Today, obviously, it's also about constant learning, and about the most important thing is that the responsibility of the appraisals or PMS is gone and shifted to the appraisee. The person who is to be appraised has to take the responsibility to make sure that appraisals happen on time. Now let's see what are the digital shifts in KPIs. Clearly, we have seen that today's KPIs have to improve decision making. And for entrepreneurs like you, imagine if you have whatever employees, 20, 30, 40,000, 20,000. If your performance management system and your goal setting does not improve decision making, then it's a waste. It also has to save time. And in the COVID situation of today, has to be easily accessible to all your remote workers. And remember, I talked about gig workers being a reality today. This system has to work in the environment where there is gig working happening. So I talked about the fact that annual feedback is dead. So if annual feedback is dead, what is in is the ongoing conversations, which means you now have to give flexibility to have conversations on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, quarterly basis, 6-monthly basis. You do no longer have annual feedbacks, and you no longer even set KPIs. And this is interesting, ladies and gentlemen. It may be a bit of a challenging the conventional when I say that in TechM, which is a very large company, we have said we will not even set annual KPIs. Our KPIs will be dynamic to a quarter. And it could be a case where somebody has a KPI for a quarter and it's not relevant for the next one. So to keep them agile, we have taken the path of quarterly KPIs rather than sort of annual, and clearly ongoing conversations are most important to increase and enhance productivity of employees. Uh, I talked about this already, but this just gives a little more in-depth information about our weekly check-ins. And, you know, we are not a company that says we will set your KRAs in the month of April, and then for the whole year, we'll forget them, and then we'll review them in the month of March next year. In fact, we are talking about weekly check-ins. We are talking about to-do lists. We are talking about prioritizing work on a weekly basis. And you know, some companies are still annual, some companies have moved to 6 monthly, but if you really want an effective management of priorities, if you want to have an effective management of output and outcome, I would strongly recommend that if not weekly, at least move to a monthly and keep KPIs dynamic. And I'll talk about this in the subsequent slides. So let me tell you what we've been talking about till now. We are saying KPIs are dynamic, KPIs are agile, and it's about relationships. You build relationships with your employees. You know, a lot of people have complained that, oh, you know, attrition in top performers is massive. The problem is we don't really have conversations with them. We don't build relationships. And like they say today, it is not only with an employee and it is not only till you are in the office. Today, your relationships or human experiences, as we call it in TechM, go beyond the employee to their families and beyond the workplace into their homes. So, so the question that probably you're checking is, how should one begin? What should one do? And I know that all of you are brilliant entrepreneurs. I know that you probably experimented already more than even an organization like us. But this is just sort of my view on what we should do. So clearly, I'm going to talk about these 7 parameters, and let me take them one by one. Firstly, you have to redefine both your business goals and your objectives of individuals in the new situation as it changes. So when pandemic hit us, it changed a lot of things for us as a company. But imagine what it did to people who were in the travel industry. Imagine what it did to people who were in the retail industry. So obviously, if you haven't looked at your redone your KPIs and goals, and then dynamically change it over a monthly basis, then that's not going to work. We also need, before you set your KPIs, you need to set your KPQs, which is you're going to ask yourself these questions that what is it that you're really going out and addressing? You have to list down all your questions and then see whether your KPI system, your performance management system actually answers those questions. A very important fallacy, ladies and gentlemen, is we always look inside out. We never look outside in. And while we set KPIs, we talk about grow 20% or increase your revenue to double, but we never compare it with competitor data. If your competitor is growing at 60%, and even if you grow at 20%, it's not good enough. So obviously the important thing is when you set KPIs, it has to be done with an outside in approach, guiding yourself with competitor data. The new change again, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have to determine how often do you meet. We have to determine how often do we collect data. And as I said in my first slide, it's all about data driven. It's all about one source of truth. So which means there's some data points you'll collect on a daily basis. There's some data points you'll collect on a weekly basis, but the reporting will also happen accordingly. So you have to be very clear on what data points are you collecting at what frequency. The fifth point is extremely important, ladies and gentlemen. All of us erroneously believe that KPIs and goal setting is only about long-term goals. It cannot be further than the truth, because KPIs are also about short-term and long-term goals. And as we say, you have to survive today to be able to fight tomorrow. It is not about the future is bright. So you have to have a set of goals which are very, very short-term or short-term, and combine them with the goals that, of course, are long-term, which anyway you will do. Again, setting up a KPI of the new normal or the now normal, accountability. Who is responsible for what? And let me give you an example, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things that we see that goes wrong is we hold multiple people responsible for the same job. And the problem is that if there is not one throat to choke, if there is no one person who is responsible for the outcome, you will never get that work done. And anyway, you will be working in complete chaos. And of course, seventh, I don't have to preach to all of you. You are masters in knowing this, but open communication, which is two-way. Open communication doesn't mean only one way. Open communication, which is two-way, is very, very important to create an environment where you actually make sure that not only are your KPIs set properly, but they are reviewed properly, they are understood properly, and then they are proliferated to their enabling teams. Because if I have been given a KPI, of course, there is somebody else that I depend upon. And open, transparent communication ensures that the collaboration quotient of enabling teams is enhanced considerably. So, just to reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, the 7 points of setting up truly, I would say, flexible, agile, responsive KPIs into today's world are these 7 points. And if I had one slide that I would ask all of you to remember in this presentation, it is this slide where these are the points that you take home and implement in your organizations. So I've been asked this question. So how should a KPI be? I mean, everybody knows how KPIs are. Everybody knows they're supposed to be smart. Everybody knows that they're supposed to be measurable, but really, my 6 points are slightly different. My 6 points say KPIs should be aligned to the changing needs of the company. If I have 130,000 people, if all 130,000 people are not aligned in their KPIs to our changing needs because of COVID, because of the pandemic, because of our priorities, because obviously things have changed, right, in the last few months, and things will again change as the vaccine comes out. They have to be attainable, but they have to be stretched. Again, there has been many debates about the fact that should you set goals which are easily attainable and over exceed them, or should you set goals which are slightly stretched, or should you set goals which are humongously set? Well, it's no right answer. All I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, is that every organization is different. For Tech Mahindra, we prefer setting extremely stretched goals and then reward people for the effort. The goals have to be acute. Acute means they have to be understood clearly, and the relationships between the goals have to be understood. The goals can't be woolly, so they have to be accurate. When we set measures, they have to be completely accurate, actionable, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, they have to be alive. You can't be dead in setting KPIs, which means as you change in your business outlook, they should be, and you can do it through technology or you can do it through manual. I mean, we do it through technology, that the change in your business reality should trickle down to your KPIs automatically, seamlessly. And there should be no lag between setting your KPIs or changing your KPIs to the business reality that happens. So actually, setting smart goals is just not enough. And having smart KPIs is just not enough. You have to have aligned, attainable, acute, accurate, actionable, and alive KPIs. I call them the 6 A's of how a KPI should be. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm almost at the 30-minute mark, but this is my last slide. And what I want to tell all of you is, again, it's a myth that KPIs for some can be made measurable, and KPIs for people in HR, finance, and other places, or maybe even in legal, etc., cannot be measurable. I can assure you, every single KPI in TechM is measurable. Every single KPI for people are looked at on a weekly and a monthly basis. And we have no shame in saying that if a KPI is redundant, it is thrown out of the window, and we actually carve out fresh KPIs. I've also said, not only do we measure, but we also put in the stretch. And we are not shy of saying that it will be hugely stretched. And if you put in the effort, you will be rewarded no matter what the outcome is. So, ladies and gentlemen, these were some of my thoughts on, what a KPI or goal setting or a performance management system should be. I will be happy to take any questions, or if you have any comments, I'll be happy to take them and answer them for you.
Thank you, Harsh. Great insights. I already have one question here for you. The question is from Mr. Anand. He says, what platform do you use to collect feedback and log KPIs related performance?
So, a great question, Anand. Thank you for asking that. Again, let me be candid. It makes no difference what system you use. It makes no difference if it's automated or manual. We obviously use an AI tool. We obviously use blockchain. We use all kinds of technology, but that's not what makes it effective. I'll tell you what makes it effective. What makes it effective is the rigorous follow-up and review mechanism. And I'll take a minute to explain what it is. When we look at the CEO's office, when we look at how a CEO reviews happen. So there are some reviews which happen on, let's say, financials. There are some reviews that happen on the business as usual, or some reviews happen on corporate development or M&A. Some reviews happen on people and succession planning, and some reviews happen on just your goals. So again, the point is, technology and platform can help you get data in place. But really, how you use that data and how you use that information that has come to you is going to be the key. And to be honest, we had great platforms. And I'll be very candid to tell you, some years ago, we had the best platform, then we were terrible in measuring. So till we realized that, it's about the rigor. It's about the fact that we have to say that we are living in crisis. And if we don't actually be agile, and one of our traits of our company is we are very agile. We are willing to throw out something if it doesn't work, and we are not shy to say we made a mistake. So what my suggestion to you is, whatever tool you use, there are many available in the market today, is not relevant. What is relevant is how you actually take data, how you measure it, and how you put it into action. And if data says the person is not up to the mark, nothing else should matter. Or if the data says that the person is great and is right on the track and is helping the organization, nothing else should matter. So don't ever, obviously, it's not all about data. It's also about human to human relationships, like I talked about it. But we make a system convoluted when we put in overlay data by emotions. While emotions are there, data should be determining really the outcomes. Sorry for the long answer.
Harsh, you mentioned about relations. in this remote world where everything is, all the communication is having digitally, what are the ways that you are actually using to maintain this positive relationship amongst people? Because being in
Great
office,
question.
developing relationship was very easy. Now it has become pretty superficial by going digital at times.
Great question, Shirish. And again, I have really talked about it a lot. I will give you the answer firstly, I'll give you a quote. There's a lady called Maya Angelou. What she said is, people forget what you say to them. People may forget what you did to them, but people will never forget how you make them feel. And in today's world, we have seen that managers or leaders who are more command and control are not successful because they're used to people sitting around them, and then the command and control kicks in. But people who had a empathy level which was deeper, people who had relationships with their customers as well as with their employees and their colleagues, have been hugely successful. Customers have not felt any lag in most cases where employees connected on an emotional level. And uh, I can tell you, we were up 94% in the first 72 hours. And being an IT company, and remember, if a company like ours and employees did not actually get everything up, no telecom should have worked, no banking would have worked, even the police wouldn't have worked because the police control rooms are managed by us too. So I'm just saying, it's not about any industry, it's about how passionate employees are. Passion is never driven by danda.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm saying, if you trust people, and I can assure you, trust is the key. If people trust you and you trust people as manager and leaders, it will be magic. And people will go beyond it. And communication has to be transparent. Communication has to be candid. Communication has to be regular. In today's world, one thing that we have really realized, one difference is we realize that physical well-being is good or important, but mental well-being is even more important. We have had so many cases where people, because they were alone, have faced sort of a crisis because they don't know what to do. We actually had we had a sort of scheme called Each One House One, where our families invited people who were single to live with them for months, and we realized that that was the best move we did, because communication, when you show care and show passion and show love, is a lot more cleaner and simple.
Right. There's a question from Nitesh. He wants to know, how do we really find competitor data for setting up our company's KPIs? How do we?
Well, it depends. If the company is listed, it's all available in your annual reports. If the company is not listed, there are still data available. There are insights available through various forums, right? For example, NASCOM, for example, TiE, and others. It is, the problem lies in us. We always say, "ये तो मिलेगा ही नहीं data." And I can tell you, we hire employees from competition all the time. I mean, we have enough access. And I'm not saying go and do spying on anybody else, but the fact is, if we really try and look outside in, if we really, first is, and I'll tell you what we do to Nitesh. Nitesh, that's a great question. Our first slide in TechM is on various matrices, where are we? And where is the best in the industry? And what's the difference? So we might be great, but if the best in the industry is 5 points higher, then we reflect. And that slide is magical, because sometimes when people come and say, "Oh, you know what? I grew my revenue by 20%," and you tell him, "But your competitor grew by 60%. That is true PMS. That is true KPIs. Because suddenly he feels, from a superstar that he thought he or she was, you really got them down to say, "Oh gosh, I only did 20%, somebody did 60." And the vice versa is also true. And people do come and say, "Listen, competitor grew at 2%, I grew at 10." Well, that's truly magical. And I think that person needs to be really rewarded.
There's a question from Amit. He wants to ask that even for a small enterprise, should KPIs be set for each department, or should?
Well, absolutely. I think not even each department, each human being who works in the company should have a KPI. Uh, Again, not reams of paper, but remember, it's like this. A KPI is a direction, is a Google map to take you to your destination. Remember, if you don't have a Google map and you don't know where the destination is, you'll be lost. So if people don't know what is expected of them, and the organization believes that they will still contribute, it never is going to happen. So you have to clearly set A, the outcomes expected, and two, really the path to the outcome. And that's why I said in my presentation, conversations weekly. Imagine a lot of people would actually say, why weekly? We don't even have time to do annual appraisals. The problem is annual appraisals are sometimes an eyewash. But if you're constantly engaging with a human being or an employee every week, you actually know exactly what the person is doing. And the annual appraisal becomes very, very easy. The only problem is we set our KRAs in April. Until March, we don't even look at them. And suddenly we get them out in April, March and say, oh, re, kya hua? And you've been telling the guy he's a great performer. At the end, you tell him, no. As far as KPIs are concerned, he's performed terribly. So I think constant engagement, and yes, please do set objectives. And it doesn't need to be any format or any particular way, but it has to be clearly given. Every person should know what it is that one person is supposed to deliver, where are the lines, and who's accountable.
Mr. Prithviraj wants a little bit of elaboration on the fact that supremely productive means supremely connected. He needs a bit of more in-depth idea on this.
Well, that's a great point. Yeah, and I did mention it in my previous answer that networking is one of the key essentials. And I'll tell you what networking means. People should know what is expected of them, but also know what is expected of the others and then connect the dots. And great managers and great leaders connect the dots well. And or if I say that this is my pad and I'm only responsible for this, it's like in a manufacturing setup, a guy who's responsible for creating an engine makes terrific engines and continues to make 100 engines, where the supply chain has broken down and the cars cannot be produced more than one or two. Imagine the chaos. So I mean, when I say supremely connected, I mean connected to the business, connected to the outside world, connected to yourself and your team, and connected to how you have to support an ecosystem to deliver. There is a myth that one human being can change the company. It's always one human being working with a lot of others. And it could be human or non-human, because today we also have a humanoid working for us, who's also got an employee number. So it's just that we have gone beyond the living today, but it's still collaborative. It's still not only technology. A lot of people make this fundamental mistakes that we use AR for the sake of AR or AI or RPA. It's not technology. Technology is an enabler. Movements of truth are still human. And you have to use a high-tech environment to deliver a high-touch, outcome. And that's what I mean connected. You can't just say, okay, by the way, from now on, I'm going to wish you good morning on a mail. It's never going to work.
Friends, we have a hard stop at 6 p.m. because Harsh has another meeting. So please shoot your questions and we will try to take up as many as possible. So Harsh, we have another question from my friend Pramod Pachisia. He wants to know what sort of unique data points you captured, which you think are fairly new points that you have started collecting in this new normal, or should I, as you mentioned, now normal, and with the technology being available. What are those new data points that you're capturing these days?
Let me give you an example which is real. We were reviewing our structure the way we are, and we do it because the new normal has determined that we look within. And we also said what are the, so, every morning we have a to-do list, and that to-do list sort of, goes haywire, and it keeps changing. We said, no, the business gets impacted. And for our business, we identified 34 parameters. Against those 34 parameters, that means if those 34 parameters are met, our entire business depends upon those 34 parameters, from talent to large deals, right? And what we really said is, we will only measure those 34 parameters, and we will put an owner, and the owner will come and actually talk about those parameters every single month. So we have 34 owners for 34 parameters, and they come and they deliver each month on where they are and what the challenges they face. This is a big shift for us because everybody had a standard KRA. Then we said, for the top 100 people, we will actually set KPIs or performance management where we will have their goals, we will have their performance over the last 2 years, we will also have their potential mapping, and then we'll say, okay, remember, you got us to this position, but are you the right leader to take us in this new pandemic situation? Because my boss always says a beautiful thing. He says, there's a difference between peacetime generals and wartime heroes. Because in war, which is the pandemic, you can't have a peacetime general. You actually need a wartime hero. So we have to make sure that in the change scenario, you have to have the right person for the right job, because the outcomes expected are, again, very different. Then for us, many other data points changed. For example, we decided what will be the single source of truth for us. So some data points will come from finance. Some data points will come from delivery. Some data points will come from what we call a new age delivery. Some data points will come from people function. And therefore, that's the only source of truth. Because what happens is, Suresh and others, that in the time where there's so much pressure on performance, people say, "This data is galat hai. Mera data is different from your data." There is huge discussion on data for the first 3 days. So in our system, the biggest change we've done is single source of truth. You present that source of truth and you tell us on a monthly basis how you're doing. Imagine if Harsh Soin gives 12 presentations to his CEO, performance management to automatically ho gaya. Because 12 times I have told him how well or badly I'm doing. And the data points come from a single source of truth, and you actually redefine what you want to measure to make a business successful.
Right. Great. Harsh, there's a question from Sanjeev Chaudhary. At an individual level, what do you think should be an ideal performance KPI spread between, say, business, human development relationship, customer or peer level, or even internal? So what do you think should be the ideal performance KPI spread?
Very difficult question to answer, and I don't think there's a single answer to it. Again, depends on your role. And I'll give you an example why. I lead people as a function, right? And marketing. But when crisis came, my biggest role was to make sure that I give cost optimization at the soonest possible. And I also control discipline so that there is no leakage. Now, that was Q1 for me. And we call our first phase as the repair phase. And my KPIs for the repair phase, which is just 2 quarters, by the way, for us, my KPIs for the repair phase are very different. And then comes the rally phase where we come up and you are bouncing back. And if you see TechM results, you'll see clearly these phases. My KPIs for rally is completely different. And then comes rise, which means there you stabilize and you really capture market share again. My KPIs for that are completely different. So while the first phase, in the repair phase, I was bringing down manpower, I was cutting costs. But in the rally and repair phase, rally and rise phase, I'm actually saying for the growth, fueling the growth, I'm hiring. I'm getting talent in, and I'm actually making sure that I actually hire talent at a rapid pace to again fuel the growth. So I'm saying It depends on which phase you are in, and but only suggestion is keep it agile. Don't make it, okay, एक बार set कर दिया, दोबारा कभी देखेंगे नहीं. We should do it every month. We should review it every phase. And no shame in changing it if it's wrong. I mean, it's not relevant, change it.
Right. Thanks, Harsh. So next question is from Prerna. She wants to know, how can we really set measurable KPIs for engineers working back office in a consultancy firm who are not responsible for business development? So basically, somebody's into business development, you can easily track numbers, but somebody's into back office, how do you really track numbers there?
So firstly, Prerna, great question. Thank you for asking. I have a different view. As I said, I've challenged many conventions. This is one convention I challenge. There is no back office. There are direct revenue functions and there are enabling functions. And enabling functions are not less important. Imagine when our sales team goes and sells something. Is that more important, or is when our delivery team in the back office actually stitches together a proposal? Or the delivery team in, again, the back office actually delivers that product? Or our digital sales team, which are actually sitting here in India doing virtual sales? Or our people function enabling the supply chain of people? Because in a tech company, and I'm giving examples of tech company because that will just make it more real. We only sell people. I mean, there's a product. To be honest, it's people, it's the services, right? And the people function actually becomes a very, very important function. Similarly, when we sign contracts with our customers, the legal department, if you make an error in signing a contract, your liability can run into hundreds of millions of dollars. And you can actually wash away everything that you've done. So actually, to be honest, every single function has to be viewed as either a direct enabler or an enabling function. There is no back office. The problem is we consider some functions as back office and say, oh, to the back office that you don't speak to the customer. And you imagine that if an engineer in the back end who actually understands this technology so well talks to the customer, his impact will be 100 times of the sales guy who doesn't understand this technology speaking to the same customer. And we have experimented with it. And I can tell you that the impact of people who are passionate is humongous, whether they're back office or front office. So I would say, relook at your definition of back office.
There's a question from Mr. Ranjan Goenka, who is a very senior entrepreneur in the Calcutta ecosystem. Experienced team members versus new recruits who are more updated with the new technology. How to handle this to balance on multiple parameters?
Mr. Goenka, this is a great question, and I salute you for asking this. It's a paradox that we are all fighting for. In our system, we talk about something which is called reversing the pyramid, because we believe that the future lies not in people who are doing the same thing for many, many years. The future lies in people who are more agile, more technology driven, digital enabled. And those are the new guys. Those are the freshers coming in. Those are the youngsters. And successful companies are those who allow the youngsters to mentor the old foggies like me. So we have a system called reverse mentoring. We have 8,000 reverse mentors. I have 2 of them who keep telling me on a daily basis how bad I am and how delayed decisions I make. And they actually can tell me that I'm a shitty guy in any decision that I'm making, but they keep me agile. They make me better on a daily basis. And I can tell you, we learn as a company. My boss has 3 of them. We love to work with the youngsters, and the challenge of organizations today is we have to cut the traditional hierarchy. We have to put the youngsters in front. I can tell you for TechM, many country managers are below 26 years old. We have people who we hire who are between 26 and 32, and they run anything between a $10 million to $100 million account. Traditionally, we would never put them down because they don't have 30 years of service. But the point is, when they go to meet a customer and they talk technology, they talk it so beautifully. And therefore, I think while experience has its merits, please don't get me wrong, and we will always have place for experience. I think it's a fine balance. We have to balance youngsters with people with experience, and it'll be a beautiful dish when you have the right ingredients. The only thing is, all ingredients make a dish more flavorful or tasty, and we should not forget that young blood and young passion is a key ingredient.
We all are learning so much from our kids back at home.
That's correct. That's correct.
That is what we should do at our office also. Right. So since we have a hard stop at 6, here's a last question for you, Harsh. Any good book or resource you would like to recommend on KPI implementation in any company?
I can recommend many books, but here is my suggestion. What's good for somebody is not good for you. And what's good for you may not be good for your neighbor. Don't underestimate what you have as your companies. Understand your own culture, understand. And there's nothing wrong. Sometimes we say, oh, by the way, Google mein aise hota hai, so we should also do the same. But we are different people, we are different companies, right? And it's not that you're wrong or they're wrong. I would say, firstly, delve into your culture. Delve into your DNA that makes you work. It could be whatever. For example, in tech, and again, I'll give you an example. Our DNA is we still behave like a startup. We are very, very entrepreneurial. We keep doing strange things. And I've always given my example. I've run a large country. I'm doing marketing. I'm doing HR. And by the way, I'm not even an engineer. So I'm just saying you have to understand your DNA first. Second, the best book for you is the one that you write. The best book for you is what you feel in your company you can write. Create history, create your own legacies, because all of you are so special. Anyway, you are so successful, but you know your heart better than anybody else. You know what beats for you, what works for you. And I would just say, never ever doubt the magic that you already have that made you successful. While we keep cursing ourselves and criticizing ourselves, and sometimes trying to ape everything that others are doing, I would say recognize your strengths and recognize your weaknesses and work on them. And that's the best book, the one that you write.
Thank you, Harsh. Absolutely great insights. So I think all of us have learned a lot from what you have explained today. So thank you so much for sparing your valuable time for the Calcutta entrepreneurs today. So I'm sure most of us will be able to implement some nuggets. We must have stolen some nuggets out of what you have shared today, and we will implement those in our companies. And hopefully we will also, maybe I'll try to give this challenge to each one of us over here, that if we really implement something, let us take the responsibility and really send an email or a message on LinkedIn to Harsh, so that he really gets to know that yaar inhone sirf suna nahi hai, kuch karke bhi dikhaya hai.
That'd be wonderful, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Really
so
grateful.
Thank you so much, sir. Since you have a hard stop at 6, so I am being able to map the watch exactly for you. So that's it from us. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you very much, and likewise, and thanks to all of you, and thank you for joining in. And I'm always available. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. My mails are there. I mean, I'm absolutely fine. If there's any more questions, I'll be happy to answer them at any given time. Thank you, and all the best.
Requesting one more session with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ash. Thank you, Abhinila. Thank you, friends.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Mr. Swain, for coming to attend, to take the session. And Mr. Srish Agrawal, thank you so much for coming to host the session in such a short notice. It was great having you all. And dear attendees, please note that next week on Saturday, we have another session on TiE Kolkata Bootcamp. At the same time, we'll share the details with you at the earliest. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Stay on.